I am your host, a husband, father, witty conversationalist, and co-founder of the Movement Real Estate Group. Join me for engaging discussions with friends where we navigate through business, goals, self-development, relationships, and our community, and whatever else captures our interest. Come join me on this journey as we rediscover the art of conversation. All right, episode 17, The Movement Experience. I am your host, Merrick, and I am joined today with my good friend, Aseem Grover. Dr. Aseem Grover, excuse me. I guess you did go to school for almost a decade to earn that title, so should probably use it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it. So let's talk about who you are first before we get into anything. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you work?
Yeah, so my name is Aseem Grover. I'm a physician. I specialize in rural medicine, predominantly work in Hope and pick up occasionally in areas across Fraser Health. So from Burnaby to Hope, occasionally if there's any sort of crises to kind of help out with that.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially I'm a physician that is mainly involved in acute care, so hospital emerge and sort of those sort of areas where those are big gaps right now in their healthcare system.
What do you mean big gaps?
Yeah, just having some challenges with some staffing. Yeah, there's been a sort of paradigm shift in where physicians see themselves working these days. Interesting.
We'll definitely get into that. I do want to ask a bit about your background before. I'm going to make you pull this up real close like that. I want to ask a bit about your background before, like what got you into medicine? Why did you become a doctor? What kind of sparked the interest for you, and how early was that spark?
Yeah, so my dad's a family physician. He sort of worked on brainwashing me from a young age. Long road trips.
Good for him.
Start instilling being a physician it gives you the best opportunity for a lot of things that you want to do in life. Mm-hmm. I actually wanted to be a teacher when I was younger.
No way.
Yeah. And mainly because I enjoyed school, I enjoyed relationship building, and I wanted to help kids. I wanted to help teach, and that teaching is one thing that I was really interested in, and it still is. I'm very passionate about teaching now in the medical sense.
Right.
But my dad pitched it to me in a way where it was quite interesting. He said, well, if you're a teacher, you can help kids, but if you're a physician, you can help kids, adults, and even the elderly. And I was like, okay, that's a great pitch.
I'm listening.
Yeah, totally. And then just to throw him off, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go bartend in Australia. But then no, I'm just joking. But so anyways, that was the big pitch. And I knew that, going to med school and doing all that stuff, going to residency and going through all that jazz is going to take at least a decade of work.
Right.
And so I just needed a bit of time there after high school to kind of make a decision. Do I want to do this, or is it something that I've been really swayed from my father, right?
Right.
So,
which he, for sure, swayed you as much as he could.
Absolutely. And, as a young guy, you just want to help. You want to make your own decisions as well.
Yep.
And so you want to make sure what you're doing for the rest of your life is something that you actually really want to do. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, if I actually decided to go that route right away, I'm not sure if I would have felt I was doing it for myself. But I took a bit of time off after high school, and then I definitely made that decision, and then I was good to go.
So what was it for you that made that decision? It wasn't your father's choice, but you wanted to do it. What was it?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes high school gets busy towards the end there. Lots of stuff happening. And you want to be involved in a lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. We went to the same high school. And so it's just kind of just making sure. So I like to be present in everything I'm doing. And sometimes
that's a good quality to have.
Yeah. And sometimes when you are transitioning through, say, any area of school, there are lots of things to think about. Mm-hmm. Not just what's happening in your personal life, but am I enjoying what's happening in the present? And then also I'm thinking about my next step. And sometimes when you're young, you can get easily overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And so I just needed a bit of time after, graduating. Took a few months off, traveled a bit, and then off I went to the races.
Wow. 10 years.
Pretty much, yeah. I would say it's around 10 years because you have to include that residency, depending on what you do. So after you graduate medical school, you go into residency. And I was fortunate enough to do my residency in downtown Vancouver. You know, a lot of people have to go all over Canada or in the U.S. to get a residency position. And then, for family medicine, it's only 2 years. But for other specialties, we're talking about 4 or 5 years. So you're talking about maybe ranging from 12 to 15 years of school. Depends if you want to be a surgeon, subspecialist, and so forth.
Right. Oh, man, that's a long time. That's unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, the time goes by either way. I had a conversation with my nephew one time about like what he should do for school, and I was like, dude, time's gonna go by either way. You're either gonna have a degree at the end of it or you're not. And the same 4 years, 10 years is gonna go by for both people.
Yeah.
So you just choose what you want to do, and then don't worry about that. Just keep working towards it. You'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I do think it's important that when people are deciding what they're doing at that young age, in this day and age, because we know with artificial intelligence growing like insanity.
I've got questions about that for you guys, for sure.
And then with just brainstorming what you want and brainstorming what's going to that's going to land you a job where you can pay the bills, right?
Right.
You have to take those reality sort of things into consideration.
Yeah, the world landscape in 40 years from now is going to be a lot different than what we're used to growing up.
Yeah.
So
maybe even 10 years.
Yeah, maybe even 10. I know I heard someone say that it's like our kids may potentially never have a driver's license.
Potentially.
Because automated cars, they'll pick them up, drive them where they need to go. They'll potentially never get one. I was like, wow, that's a wild thought. So, all right, let's get into this. Let's talk medicine.
All right, love it.
I recently read a poll, and it was something like 68% of Canadians feel the medical system is doing worse now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's with the change? What's happened?
And so that's one hell of a big question.
Let's break it down. But small bite-sized pieces.
Let's dive into this. Okay?
Sure.
So currently, there has been a lot of stuff happening and a lot of changes that have been happening over the last, I would say, 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
Let's look at, I don't know, if that survey or poll was to happen pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the consensus? Do you think it would still be the same numbers, or do you think people have been more unhappy over the last?
More unhappy probably since COVID. I would guess.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. We feel it there in the emergency department. We feel it there in the hospitals.
Yeah.
Because I've been working now for 8 years, and the landscape has changed drastically over the last 3 to 4 years since the height of that pandemic there. So a couple of things to acknowledge here. When the healthcare system doesn't do well when there's drastic change all of a sudden.
Right.
And COVID did that. So there was all of a sudden these new stressors that were applied, and sadly, because of the drastic change and how many hours a week some of our older physicians were working,
right,
it didn't push them out, but it made them decide, maybe I need to step back or make a decision on what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, with Bonnie Henry making addressing certain concerns about how it affects even older doctors or the elderly population,
mm-hmm.
there were some serious concerns about people going out of acute care. And so, and not even that, changing the model of how we deliver care in the office, right? Now you hear a lot about the sort of telehealth or virtual health model where you get more phone calls.
Yep.
It's made it accessible for, say, someone young like yourself, but young people like yourself are not the ones that are filling up our hospitals, right?
Right.
It's our 70 or 80-year-old individuals, might have some hearing impairment, may struggle with, talking on the phone because
mm-hmm.
they've been relationship-based their whole life.
Yeah. That's a big ask for someone in late boomer to just pick up a phone and go like, well, how would he possibly know what I have? He needs to see it.
That's right.
Right.
And so if all of a sudden, a doctor, say in his 50s and 60s, has been doing a certain ways, and all of a sudden, boom, we're changing everything, and we're changing it now.
Right.
And so it didn't digest well for many people, and it's essentially allowed certain physicians to just take a step back, which is, I think, a good thing too, to say, okay, maybe I don't want to do this anymore as hard as I was going before.
Right.
And so that reduction in hours, and then some physicians retiring, and sort of the list goes on in that
mm-hmm.
realm, put a big gap in the communities, right? You'll hear about, certain physicians, oh, I had this physician for 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden, he's now retiring, stepping down, or he's reducing his role, he's closing down his family practice.
Right.
And then in the hospitals, you're also noticing those individuals no longer doing the hospital care.
Right.
And so it's just that put a big sort of net deficit into the healthcare system. Now, we are always, and UBC at this point, because UBC is the only sort of, I guess, have a sort of monopoly on the medical school side of things in BC, since the University of British Columbia, so they're responsible for all the residency positions in BC. This year, they've increased their seats, and now we're producing almost about 204 family physicians per year. And so we're reproducing, but they're not working at the same level as same level as people like my dad and so forth.
Right.
My dad had he was following maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people in the community, and someone like myself, maybe 500 to 1,000. So it's such a different sort of situation, and the care is different. Like a lot of public expectations of the younger physicians is so different than some of the older school physicians, but they've had that relationships with so many people where they can have quicker visits, they can have sort of certain follow-ups done a certain way, which it just wouldn't work for the younger physicians. So the younger physicians have more time. There's different asks of the younger physicians, and so they just can't attach as many patients. Yeah, and so that net deficit, one retiring doctor you need about 3 doctors to replace that guy.
So how is that system working for them? Let's call them boomer doctors. They're retiring now. How could they handle 3,000 patients? And then now the doctors coming in are handling 1,000, let's say. Yeah,
complexity's gone up significantly. In any given day, there was some statistics that one of the physicians had highlighted for us about 3-4 years ago. So this is just pre-COVID. 20% of your day was sort of complex patients. They got multiple problems. They're coming in, say, wheelchair. They have maybe they're paraplegic and all that stuff. So maybe 20% of people would be complex. Right now, we've crossed 50%.
Why?
Well, there's more medical needs, growing population. People are living longer. There's other things that are happening that are keeping people around, and there's more, I would say, more intervention to keep people around, even post incident, right?
Yeah. So as medicine is increasing in the technology is increasing, getting better.
Yeah.
People are now surviving where they maybe wouldn't have survived before. So this is a compounding effect. So yes, it's great they're alive, but now you've got after the care to take care of for this patient now, potentially for life.
Absolutely. You had a heart attack 80 years ago, you're toast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
they would have give you like a tablet of morphine and be like, here you go.
Yeah,
good luck.
Here's an
chest
aspirin.
pain. Yeah, aspirin. There we go.
Best of luck.
Yeah, totally. And now
it off.
That's right. And now you can be down for minutes, and we'll bring you back, and
right.
And then we'll take you to the cath lab, put a stent in, and you're good to go. But now post stenting, you got heart failure.
Right.
Your heart's pumping at 35%. You can still live for 6-7 years, but you know what? That individual is slowly going to decline, and even though it can have some measurable quality of life,
right.
It's going to be in and out of hospital now. It's going to be requiring follow-up with the family doctor, but that complexity is there now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it was about 204 patients or doctors coming out of UBC going into whatever it's called.
Family. So
are they going? My question was: are they going into family physicians? Are they becoming family physicians? Or there's 200 that are going to specialize into other things as well?
So my answer would have been totally different about 1 year ago, because and this has been on the news as well. There has been, I would say, a change in payment model for the community physicians.
Oh, good.
So finally, they're getting compensated, I would say, at fair market value for per minute of work for what they're doing.
Right.
Finally.
Because, so people that are listening know, for a long time that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Doctors were financially incentivized to go into specialties and different things, which has left a kind of a vacuum in the community. So so they go, oh, wait a minute, we've got to change the model a little bit and pay these guys a little bit more money.
Yeah. And all these funding models will come through the ministry. They'll take the ideas of various working groups, various experts, and then make a decision. But this is a long time coming. The challenging part is that, I think some of the responsibility does come on the ministry here. They didn't look at the unintended consequences of the other areas of medicine,
Right.
where family physicians are involved in. So, if you look at this payment model, well, for the minute of work and the acuity, so for the complexity, it pays much better than taking care of a critically ill patient in the hospital, and it pays much better than, say, working in the emerge as a family practitioner.
Now.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And this model has come in the last couple of years?
Within the last year.
Oh, wow. So this is just changed.
That's right. And that's why you're seeing now crisis after crisis, various people speaking out, predominantly in the acute care sites. So now you're seeing people that work for a hospital speaking out, and they're coming on, speaking to whatever news outlet they can talk to about how unsafe it is, and also
How unsafe what is?
about providing the care that they're able to provide in these hospitals. And we don't have enough physicians to work in these acute care sites. We're losing physicians, and the emergency departments are getting harder and harder to fill. There are gaps. We are filling them, but it is getting harder and harder. It's not at the point like they're speaking about how unsafe they feel or how unsafe the care is, and it's just, I wouldn't say that it is unsafe, but I would say that it's getting more challenging for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, because the news organizations throw around the word crisis a lot. We're in a crisis, healthcare crisis. So are we actually there yet? Are we in a crisis, or is it like we're managing, but things need to change?
The word crisis is thrown a lot. I think that I wouldn't say the word crisis. I would say that we're in a situation where we have opportunity for unique solutions and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we have a staffing deficit there in the acute care sites. Yes, there are more family doctors that are actually going into the community, but that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
It's going to keep you out of the hospital. It's going to keep you out of the emerge.
Preventative care is huge.
It is.
So
yeah.
if you can get preventative care operating properly, this keeps, I think it was like something like 39% of, they did a poll, was like something like 39% of people said they had gone to emergency in the last 2 years for something that could have been treated from a family doctor. So something like that was like 40% of people, and that's a lot.
It is.
That's a lot of people.
I would say, just to even add a caveat to that, I would say it's actually probably much higher for people that are even attached to a doctor that can't access timely service.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah. It's I think one in two people, so half of the Canadian population can't go see their doctor by the next day or something like that. So it was like it was like half of Canadians can't get into their doctor, so they have to go to emerge because they can't get an appointment with their doctor, something like that.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where you have a family physician and he keeps maybe like say 3 to 4 spots open per day for rapid access or timely access care. It would change everything.
Right.
Versus being told, oh, it's going to take you 3 weeks to see this family doctor.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Literally what it is. Your brother is my family doctor. Shout out to she's a great doctor. He really is. He's good. He's great with the kids. He talks like he's awesome. But it's like sometimes when I call in, I'm like, hey, he's like, oh, it was like booking 2 weeks out or whatever it was. And I was like, oh man, that's shitty.
Yeah, totally. And
it start having booking appointments just in case something comes up.
Totally. And it does highlight some of the complexity that he's dealing with there, and some of the burdens that he's dealing with there, because we all have, there are huge burdens there in the office as well.
I can imagine.
But the hospital, especially the emerge, has to deal with all the unwanted sort of.
Yeah, you're dealing with everything. You're dealing with criminals who have been, shot each other.
Everything.
They're both coming in and yelling at each other still, and everything else that you can possibly imagine, car accidents and everything.
Everything. Yeah. So it's just like we're dealing with the minor things that could have been addressed by the family physician, and we're dealing with like even the major things. It would blow you away how many times I've had to even diagnose or let someone know that they have likely cancer in the emergency department, which is not the setting and not the appropriate place to do it.
Wow.
But they've been told that they can't see their family doctor for 1 or 2 weeks, which is, in my opinion, something where we have to look at the accountability piece where, well, Merrick, if you're my family physician and you have this likely cancer or tumor occurring, well, what is my role in being responsible for letting you know and getting you in very quickly to talk to you about this?
Right.
And I would say that a lot of family doctors do a good job, but we need to actually create some sort of plans where, well, if I'm on holidays, right, who can cover me and who can support me in that sort of manner, and that's very important for the accountability piece.
Yeah, you talk about doctors aging out as well, which has kind of made a vacuum in our. Is this across Canada? Is this specifically for BC?
I can't talk about the rest of Canada.
So we're talking mainly BC from your experience. We're talking about BC's health system.
And then with BC, we have a lot of people coming into BC. BC is a very desirable province to be in.
It's like California. People come and retire here.
That's right.
And guess what? They bring medical needs with them.
That's right. And there is that retiring generation of physicians, or they're reducing their hours.
Yeah.
And then
I heard I had a stat. Sorry, I'm going to throw all these stats at you because I just looked this up, so I sounded intelligent. But it was something like 6,800 doctors are over the age of 65 in Canada right now in 2023. Well, it's 2024 now, but
I believe it.
Yeah, so it was 6,800. There's like 90,000 doctors or something across in the nation or something? Is it 90,000 care workers? Can't remember what it was, but anyways, something like 6,800 doctors are basically hanging it up.
Yeah, and to your point, those if you're throwing the number 6,800 that are hanging it up soon, you're going to need 15,000.
Right, because we've already established, yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we going to have to start spending more money? What's the answer? Like, I mean, I understand the shift in payment for doctors, incentivizing going into family medicine, which is fantastic. I think the more preventative care you have, the less stress you have in the hospitals, which is a better system all around. Correct?
Yeah, and prevention is sort of the cornerstone of primary care in Canada, preventative medicine, and it really does fit into the model of what Canada is trying to apply for the population for health. And it's a fantastic model when it goes well, but what people have to recognize is that the emergency departments and the acute care departments are overburdened, and when that's happening, the hospital systems cannot run efficiently, right?
Yeah.
So just to give you some just general idea. At any given time, there could be over 5% of the hospitals, 5-10% of the hospitals where people are awaiting long-term care facility beds.
Right.
So a patient admitted in the hospital is waiting to go to a long-term care facilities. The province is aware of this, but you can only build brick and mortar facilities so quickly, right? So,
I think that's a demand that's going to be going up big time as the boomers retire and get older and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and so even you're a real estate agent, so this something stuck out really interesting to me because I did see something about this. What if in the future there's no cars and there's no parking garages? And what if those parking garages were created for, I don't know, entry home for our elderly individuals?
Yeah,
and
totally.
What if that is the future? And then do we really need these brick and mortar people? And what if we delivered sort of a better established sort of long-term care situation, but on a home basis situation?
Yeah.
Right? So we are in a very interesting time.
Well, I think with Tesla's got their robots coming out pretty quickly here, where you can basically have this robot that comes and cleans your house and cooks dinner and stuff like this. So this is legit. This is happening. And but it's like, how long until that is? Another 10 years until they could have a robot show up at your house and like give you care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like an AI, powered. He's going in there. He's like, okay, yeah. Well, actually, you need to go to see a doctor. But the basic stuff they can handle. Like, who knows? The future it's interesting. There's a lot of potential out there for different things that are coming. But let's focus on right now.
Yeah, but just going back to that point, what if you, instead of that family member going to a long-term care facility, which costs X amount of dollars, what if that went back into the garage, to where that garage home was, and helped kind of redevelop that area? Or what if there was incentives to actually build some sort of capacity like that?
That's what it needs to come down to. I think what's going to have to happen, if you want to segue into the real estate for a second, you're going to need land from the government to build facilities. There is no land to build facilities, and it's not financially feasible to build these facilities, right? There's too much money in commercial and in residential. There's no money in this. So in order to do it, If the government's like, here's some crown land developer, build this, and it was a partnership between the government and a developer, I could see that happening, right? Where they go, okay, well, we're going to give you the land for 99 years, build this facility, and blah, blah, blah. I think that's the only way that you're really going to make it happen really quickly. And the problem is people don't realize how big of a need it's going to be, because we've got the silent generation and the beginning of the baby boomers in care facility, like long-term care facilities for,
and it's already full.
And it's full. It's full.
Yeah, it's
like
full.
There's waiting lists to get in. People are getting put onto their children because these children are taking care of these parents where they have no real capacity to do so because there's no option for the parent. This is going to get so bad in Canada, like for need for people in care homes, it's going to be wild. Like it's going to be wild, and it's going to be a huge business because.
It is.
You know what I mean?
And the demand's going to keep going up and up. And, with how expensive it is to now support a family in BC, usually both individuals are working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both kids in this circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And then what people have to recognize is they can't be at home taking care of their elderly.
It's not an option.
Parent with dementia, right? It's
my father just went into a long-term care facility, so he was my little sister was taking care of him. He was living in the basement suite, and she'd come down and stuff like that. She couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. She couldn't do it. He got to the place mentally where she couldn't physically do it anymore. He had to go into a home, but it was actually he went through the hospital, and we couldn't take him, so they had to put him in right away. So that's kind of what happened, and it's thank God for my sister's sake, who's pregnant with her second, that did happen that way because she couldn't physically take care of this guy. He's big. He can't lift him out of the shower, the tubs, like all this stuff. It was
equipment.
You know what I mean?
Equipment's big and all that stuff. It's huge. And
it's huge. And this is a big thing coming.
It is. It is. And because of the lack of beds in not just in the province but potentially across Canada. But I'm not 100% sure about the rest of Canada. But I'm assuming it is.
I want to throw the stat out, and if you can't answer, don't answer. But I heard we're like top 10 in per capita in spending, and I heard we're like 137th for beds in the world per capita. Like we have less beds than like Slovenia. Than per capita, something like that, something crazy where we're spending a ton of money. And I wonder, if you think about the administrative costs, you've got Saskatchewan, Manitoba, all the territories, you've got all the 4 maritime provinces, that's 5 million people.
Yeah.
And we have 9 different medical bodies governing these 5 million people.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yep.
That's a lot of top end heavy spending there.
Yep.
And then you've got in BC, you've got 5 million people plus now. We're over 5 million. Ontario is like, 20 million, 18 million, something crazy like that.
Yep.
So it's like, I understand Ontario needing what they have, us, and, but it's like we have 9 organizations. It's like, that's a lot of red tape. And I heard you guys the provinces don't share medical records with each other?
I would say that accessing medical records province to province is very challenging.
Right.
You can, they're getting much better. Like even 3-4 years ago, they were throwing it on a CD, right? Just like
on a CD.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Now they at least put it on a USB drive.
Well, that's nice of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like if you've got a patient, he's on vacation from Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario. Yep. He comes into your ER.
Yep.
You can't pull up his records.
No, I can't.
If you need a scan that he had done 3 weeks ago in Saskatchewan, you can't get that result.
No.
So you've got to do it again.
Well,
if you needed something,
depending on what's happened to that patient.
Sure.
Yeah. A lot of times we do talk, and we deal with it actually very regularly.
Yeah.
So since I work at Fraser Canyon Hospital in Hope, predominant time we have the pipeline coming through there.
Right.
We have people from Texas, Alberta. List goes on. With pipeline throwing money, like they are just maybe not millions, but close to maybe hundreds of millions overspending on developing that pipeline.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The pipeline that the government's paying for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Totally.
Fantastic.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so
if you want something done under budget,
yeah,
call the government.
Yeah, they definitely underestimated the cost on that one.
Yeah. I think almost intentionally.
Yeah, and it's very complex when you're going through so this particular area.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's drawn in a large number of people. Like even in Hope, small town, less than 10,000 people.
That's right.
A motel's going to cost you $300-400 right now a night because it's just full of pipeline workers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. You know what you can do? They brought in new Airbnb rules. You can still buy an Airbnb in Hope.
Yeah, under 10,000 people.
That's right. It's under 10,000, so you can buy an Airbnb and rent it out. If you're listening on Radioland, that might be an investment. They got pipeline workers. Maybe not next year, but right now it's a hot ticket item.
Yeah. Call a movement group.
Yeah, call movement group. So, let me segue here. How does our system, I know we've got problems, how does our system rank up to other systems in the world? And can we compare, so people understand, like we've got a system for everyone, universal healthcare. There are other systems that are private and universal, is that correct? And then there's obviously totally private like the US.
Yeah, so say in Australia there is a two-tier system as well, and so I don't know the exact details of it.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the exact details, but just general.
But Australia was running into a lot of issues at one point as well, and then they created some modifications to that system, and for the most part, Australia's been running relatively okay. With Canada, I think first of all, I think they want well, but they are having challenges on delivering up to what's required here, because it's such a quickly evolving sort of situation, and as medicine was very slowly evolving for several years, but in the last 5 years, it's been evolving very quickly
because of COVID.
Well, COVID was something that I would say that really turned it up, but it was a long time coming. Things were slowly falling apart or still having some challenges.
Sure.
And really, when COVID happened, things were just amplified.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I would say that started the spark. Now we're running into a situation where, okay, we need a lot of things, and we've highlighted that we need a lot of things. And right now, because of all the huge deficits and the fires that are there, we're just in putting out fire mode.
Right.
But once we get to a point, and we are...
Which is not optimal.
Yeah. And when you're putting out fires, you're not providing good preventative medicine.
Right.
You're not providing the level of, the style of care that Canada really, exemplified for years.
Patients end up feeling like they're an inconvenience for the doctor.
Correct.
Because the doctor or the nurse is so stressed, they're burning out, currently burning out.
Yeah.
And then the patient's like, oh, fuck, I came in for this. I'm certainly not going to ask about this large mole that keeps getting bigger on my chest, because I'll just deal with that skin cancer later. You know what I mean? They feel like they're inconveniencing the system.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's something where I think in my opinion, I feel that a few things have to happen. I think that there needs to be a little bit more accountability on starting at, say, let's talk about the family providers in the community, right? So how I think, because we talk about health authorities having partnership with community physicians, and community physicians are really connected to sort of a governing body called the Divisions of Family Practice. Every community will have that Divisions of Family Practice, and if it's a small community, it would be a combination of them, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, Chilliwack Agassiz Hope is one.
Okay.
Abbotsford has their own divisions.
Right.
So the divisions of family practice are representing the family physicians in the community that don't necessarily have much or any connection even to the hospitals.
Okay.
But the health authority has what they call a partnership with the divisions. We say that we're collaborating, we say that we're having that partnership, but I think in my heart of hearts that there needs to be actually a further development where that partnership they have to run together rather than just saying, okay, we have a partnership. But because if you and I have a partnership and one side's doing all the work, is that really a partnership?
Well, it is for the guy that's not doing any work. Let me tell you.
Yeah, and so the community has to develop programs or initiatives to really keep their patients out of acute care.
Right.
And if they do come to acute care, there has to be some sort of checks and balances to actually help support the ER doctors versus a community family practitioner. Because I work on both sides. Versus a community family practitioner say, oh yeah, you got this. Go to the emerge.
Right.
And then they get there, and the emerge doc's not really sure what's going on.
Right.
It takes 15 minutes to figure out. That's a 15-minute delay.
Right.
Right.
One guy's having a jammer.
Yeah, totally. Well, but it could be minor, right?
Yeah.
And so like
The whole left side of my face is numb.
yeah, they don't have the background history.
Right.
Emergency doctors are happy to deal with emergencies.
Yeah,
That's what we're trained for.
Right.
But when we're dealing with, say, an increasing homeless population that comes in because there's not enough low barrier housing for that situation, or there wasn't enough community access for this individual, then we're dealing with, say, a primary care situation, say, I don't know, a mole on your side,
Sure.
and then the doctor says, well, I can't see that mole on the side of your chest. If it gets worse, just go to the emerge, right?
Right.
And then the emergency doctor is like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Send
when your
him-
doctor
yeah.
didn't want to see you, or like,
Yeah.
he can only see you in person in 2 weeks, and he thought, okay, maybe it's more emergent. But really, that's where the accountability piece is.
Right.
I would absolutely say that that person could eventually see you if it's an emergency for the community,
Yeah.
a primary care situation.
Yeah.
They should be able to see you within a couple of days.
Right. And that's, I think you're kind of, you're kind of on the fringe there, but it's like they're kicking it down almost. Like, I don't want to. You go see emerge.
Yeah, exactly. And then what happens? You have an unhappy acute care system, right?
Right.
And then one of two things happen, right? The emerge doc is just dealing with more, the backlogs happen, and so forth, and then your wait times get more and more, and more amplified.
It's insane, man.
And then the amount of resources that are happening, because when you're coming to the emergency department, the emerge doc is innately thinking, well, it's an emergency. The person's here. Obviously, something's going on, right? So something has sparked this emergency visit, and he's waiting 5-6 hours.
Yeah, 8.
So you know what's going to happen? Well, you're going to get nurse-initiated blood work. You're going to get nurse-initiated X, Y, and Z. You're going to tie up nurse resources to talk to you in the front, triage you, get your vitals, all stuff. It all takes time.
Yeah.
Right? And so you just got to imagine if there are, say, in a community of 150 to 200,000 people, say Abbotsford, imagine if those inefficiencies happen 200 times, right? Mm-hmm. One for every 1,000 people, right?
Yeah.
Per day.
Mm-hmm.
Can you not see where those inefficiencies are, and then can you not understand why those wait times are a bit higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally reasonable. If they're actually resuscitating a patient who's having a jammer, they're doing CPR.
Yeah.
No patient is like, I've been waiting for 3-4 hours, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is a cold sore.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for 5 hours here. Is somebody going to help me? It's like, and you're like,
they're not going
doing chest compressions.
They're not going to because they know you're dealing with those emergencies.
Yeah.
But when you add in all the other inefficiencies, because of some inefficiencies in the primary care system, which will get better, access will get better. They're going to work on timely access. These are things that are obviously that people are very aware of. It's just how to tread them without not upsetting the primary care physicians.
Right.
Like, and keeping in mind, like, I am a primary care physician part-time. I do work in the emergency departments.
Right.
And right now, so when I first started 8 years ago, 20% of my time was in the acute care system, in emerge, hospital, and so forth. Now, 80% of my time is in the acute care system, just because the need is so high.
Wow.
Yeah.
So would it help you guys with all the paperwork and stuff like that if you had people doing that for you, like as a doctor in emerge? So couldn't we have like some sort of a scribe system of someone that follows you around, does your paperwork for you, and like frees you up to just see more patients?
Yeah, I think it's needed.
Yeah, it would be a lot less money for us to pay for someone to do that, record and write down the notes and stuff like that for you guys than, taking your time. You spent 10 years in school, 8 years of experience, and you got to sit there and type out reports of what just happened, right? Wouldn't it make more sense just kind of get that process a little bit faster for you guys? Yeah,
and then here comes the AI right now. And now
Interesting.
They're already applying different sort of areas of AI. And I'm not going to talk about a certain brand or company because I just don't want to sway bias. But there are companies already out there where there's AI scribes.
Nice.
They're doing it. You put a microphone, just like the one we're using right now, in your office. They do ask that the patient consents to what's happening.
Okay.
That this is a AI-generated sort of
microphone
report.
Sure.
And it will take and consume your whole conversation, and then it will put out a chart note.
That's sick. That's the way it should be, man.
Yeah, but that's already happening right now.
Yeah, we need to do that kind of stuff.
Just starting, yeah.
So if we have a shortage of people, and we have a technology that we can start to implement to alleviate the need for the replacement people that we don't have, that's great. That's great. We can still give the great service, but you can use technology to increase the speed. That's freaking awesome.
Absolutely, but to what point, right? Because it's going to come down to dollars and cents.
Where robots are showing up at my door and telling me Oh, relax. That's the third nipple, Mr. Matiazzi.
Yeah.
That's not
So-
cancer.
So, a lot of these companies, they're potentially startup companies. They're potentially even bigger companies that are going to get bought out.
Right.
Right. And it's going to come to dollars and cents. And when it comes to capitalism in the U.S., I know of one thing. If you're getting paid, say, $100 an hour, just for simplicity's
Sure.
sakes, and right now they're charging, say, $10 and $10 of that $100 hours is going to go to your software for this.
Right.
They're going to absolutely push the limit on how much someone's willing to pay for this.
100%.
And, they'll say, well, you can see 2 more people, 3 more people.
Right.
But what they're not, in a vacuum, that makes sense, but actually there's a lot of aftermath work that comes into play as well.
Mm-hmm.
Clean up, all that stuff, right, that comes involved, and then you're following with labs and other things too. So it gets more complicated. But what I would say is that the AI scribe is a step in the right direction, but my concern and my fear for it is that there's going to be a dependency that eventually develops with it. And just like any, big corporate company and that wants to, make as much profit as possible with that sort of stuff.
It's almost got to be a proprietary system for the government to purchase it, and then it's theirs, and they use it, and they maintain it.
Which is never going to happen, but
no,
yeah.
because that would make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be the right thing to do.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why we can't do that.
Yeah, and so what's going to happen, in my opinion, is, doctors get a raise, the cost of the AI is going to go up now.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's going to get out of hand, and then it's going to stop somewhere, and
then you're dependent on the system because you can't go back because you've been doing it for so many years on the system. You don't have the people to replace the system. Yeah, it could get ugly.
Yeah, the right, in my opinion, the right way to do it is like something like Wikipedia, right? They have an open source situation where people can use it. It's for the greater good. Now, as advances in AI happen, there will be competition, and there will be things that cost more but are better, and so forth.
Right.
And you don't want to shut down that innovation.
No,
right?
for sure not.
Because if you just say, it's going to be open source, no one's going to pay you for this for X, Y, and Z reasons, or their government's going to put a ban on it or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's going to just shut down people wanting to do it. Right.
Right.
So they have to be smart about it. And I know the U.S. whatever laws and stuff that they enforce will then be applied to Canada eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I've got 2 questions for you on top of my head here. I know they say the U.S. system sucks. I hear a lot of that talk. The U.S. system sucks. We're lucky to have what we have. But don't a lot of the medical advancements come out of the U.S.? Like, aren't they doing a ton more research and development than like we are, or like the UK is doing, or whatever? Like, isn't a ton of the actual medical advancements coming out of the U.S.?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the UK, but there are a lot of advancements that are happening in the US. The US did a really good job. They wanted the best of the best around the world to come to the US. So they created opportunities for individuals or physicians, say in India or in different countries, to make a better life potentially, or offer a better life, and come to the US.
Right.
So they have competitive streams. They have international medical graduate competitive streams, and they want the smartest of the smartest and the brightest of the brightest to come to the U.S. and then work and live here, and then really create and work on the R&D side of things.
Right.
And they've been doing that a great job of that for decades.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah, and Canada for the longest time really did not treat international graduates the greatest. They weren't. They
70-year dad.
Yeah, well, my dad's medical degree wasn't necessarily. He wasn't able to utilize it when he came to Canada initially, and then had to go back and redo various things, and then was able to come because then they realized, we need more doctors.
Yeah, well, I think too, Canada's ramping up that program as well. Like, they want more doctors internationally. So
they are.
There's some sort of a funding that they just announced or whatever, that they're going to bring in some money to bring these guys in.
That's right. And there are good streams, right? We've increased our, say in BC, up to 204 graduating residents. So we have about roughly 50 to 60 international graduates that will do a residency in BC. And residency costs money, right? For every year of training, it's going to cost the government and the health authorities in collaboration hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Right.
And then we have a new stream which are called physician PRA, so P as in Peter, and then physician-ready assessment program.
Okay.
And now for the province, as last year was about 32 physicians per year, which are from other countries like Nigeria and so forth, are like non-US or Australian country.
Yep.
And essentially to come in, and South Africa as well.
Yep. My doctor was South African my entire life.
Yeah.
They're full of his whole thing. He brought a whole bunch of people over, had his big clinic.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so they have that, and they're expanding by 3 times. And it's just a 12-week assessment.
That's right.
It's a 12-week assessment.
Yep.
And then you're essentially ready to practice once you've been cleared and approved by a assessing doctor, and I'm one of those assessing doctors.
So guy comes in. He's a doctor in Nigeria, South Africa, somewhere else. He comes in. He's going through a 12-week program. You're like, oh yeah, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
prior to that, there's going to be some interview processes.
Sure.
There's already a application.
I'm sure
list
they're
of
vetting
hundreds.
them. Yeah, I'm sure they're vetting them.
And then there's like several vetting processes.
Yeah. So the final step is then the 12-week with another doctor, and the doctor's they're basically shadowing that doctor.
Yeah, essentially not pass or fail, but essentially
competent or incompetent.
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah.
Able to, like, because you're going to be compared to a graduating resident at that level, right?
Right. So here's a doctor with 10 years experience in his home country. He comes here, and he's equate to what we would have as a grad, a resident graduate.
That's right. Because this delivery model of care in Canada is very different from other countries, and you have to adapt, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But no, I guess a human's a human.
Yeah, totally.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they're not able to communicate very well,
for sure.
If they have even religious beliefs that will impact patient care, if they have, like, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Can you give me a hypothetical, for instance, of what a religious belief that would stop? Like, we're talking like some guy's voodoo or something, or what are we talking about?
Maybe if I didn't believe in your third nipple.
Yeah.
These are real things, and, and you just got to make sure that they're understanding
the desperation of the need can't outweigh the competency. They've got to be competent. And
we throw the word around diversity, equity, inclusion, but really part of that should be some cultural understanding as well, right?
For sure.
Yeah, especially even in this area, we do have a large Indigenous population. They got to be competent in understanding the Indigenous individuals that were here in the Fraser Health area.
Right.
They need to understand that this is a multicultural area.
Super
British Columbia is multicultural. Like, we have like Asian food that is like better than all of Canada.
Yeah.
It's because of the diversity that we have, that we bring here. And we just have to be open. And BC is pretty good at this, but bringing in someone in new, they have to be acknowledging and understanding of there is a lot of diversity here. There's different cultural sort of things to be aware of, right? When I'm dealing with maybe, say, a Japanese individual and shaking his hand, he may want to thank me in a different way, right? Like, so. Yeah. So there's just, or address me in a different way. Just different things that we have to be open to, when you grow up in BC, you may take it for granted, but when people come from different parts of the country, it's a steep learning curve.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. I take it for granted. I never thought of that in a million years. But I mean, I've been in situations where I was bowed to, and that was like, oh yeah, bow back, and that was just me being polite for that guy's culture. Yeah, I didn't even think of it.
Totally.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I got another question. The other question that I had: where the hell did the walk-in clinics go? Like, are they going to come back? What the hell happened?
Yeah, so the current new community payment model only allows you to see a certain percentage of people in the walk-in. Now, in my opinion, this is actually kind of a good thing, all right?
Okay.
This is actually forced, or at least put some pressure on family practitioners in the community to be a bit more accountable and take on more patients.
Okay.
Okay, so say if they only had maybe 600 people, but they would go to walk-in clinics to do a bit of work to maybe increase, say, the amount they're making, because they're just quick visits, right?
Sure.
Cough, colds here and there.
Yeah. Foot cream.
Yeah, whatever it is, nipple cream for you. But now they're increasing their panel sizes.
Right.
So when you're increasing your panel sizes, that's going to pull some hours away from that doctor being able to work in that walk-in clinic. Number one.
Right.
And then secondly, with how many people are unattached, they're getting consumed now by these newer physicians coming into the community, and they're setting up their own business models and so forth, and they are taking these patients on. So it's going to be less hours of a physician being able to provide that service, and there's a certain cap on how many walk-in patients you can see based on the new model of care.
So the idea, the long-term effect will be shifting patients from relying on walk-in clinics into finding a doctor and going to the doctor's office.
Yeah, and I think I think personally it's going well, but we're in a transition period.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But the idea long-term was then it's like, well, if your doctor's not taking too long to see you, whatever, you're going to find a new doctor.
Correct.
Yeah, and then the idea is that we are now putting new doctors into family care, which before weren't incentivized to go into it. So there was a vacuum.
That's right.
So long term, within the next 5-10 years, as we go and when we get more and more doctors in there, it's almost going to be like I wouldn't say competition, but there's going to be more need to provide better service.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and you're right. It's going to be about 5-10 years potentially because of the transitioning out of physicians.
Yeah.
Like you said, 6,800 across Canada that you said earlier, and we'll have to look at those numbers if that's like accurate. But
sure,
there's a large number of people that are above the age of 60 even that are going to be retiring.
Right.
Yeah, in the next 5-10 years, and so
yeah,
it's going to ebb and flow.
You don't have to retire at 65. I mean, a doctor can retire at 60 and he's fine. Like if he wants to, he wants to. But I mean, a lot of doctors are doing this because they enjoy it. I would imagine.
Yeah, and there are more challenges.
Maybe.
Yeah, everyone is different.
But I mean, the burnout rate's got to be uniquely to that doctor. I mean, like if he's done at 60, he's done at 60. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
And to your point, you start burning out when you start not enjoying what you're doing. Number one, and then not doing the things that you signed up for.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Well, if I'm an emergency physician and I'm dealing with minor things that I shouldn't be dealing with,
right,
constantly, and
instead of trauma response things.
Yeah, and I am dealing with things that are out of my control. If it's a 7 or 8 hour wait, and my first conversation with someone there for say a minor issue is they're yelling at me.
Right.
You can only take so much of that.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's like it's the equivalent of yelling at a cop for getting a speeding ticket. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like you're yelling at the cop, he pulls you over, you're speeding, number one, and then if you don't like the speed limit, write your politician. Cop didn't set the speed limit.
Yeah.
Doctor in the ER didn't set the system. He's doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can.
Yeah.
What are you doing yelling at a doctor? It's not like he's like, hey, you guys take the night off. All three of you guys go for a round of golf. I'm gonna hold down the ER by myself tonight. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just think it's kind of a misused or misprojected frustration that people take it on you guys.
Totally, and I do think that we need to do a better job of keeping our patients out of the ER, right?
Yeah.
And that is because if one side if they're connected,
yeah.
and where you see a lot of this is in smaller communities where the primary care physician also does emerge work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, he may work a few hours in the office, but then he's going to go to the emerge potentially for an evening shift right after that. He's not sending people to the emerge often. The reason is because he doesn't have to deal with that afterwards.
Right.
So he's trying to solve the solutions there in the community, right?
Yeah.
He's picking up the phone, calling a specialist, doing a lot of things to keep this person out of the emerge, so that time is not potentially impacted there.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about those inefficiencies earlier on.
Yeah.
You know, if you have hundreds of inefficiencies per day, what is it going to cause? It's going to cause a massive wait time.
Right. Could we have a system where if a patient needs a knee replacement and they could go online and they could, if they chose to travel to a different area where there was less of a wait, could they do that? Could we have a system that lets people kind of not select but it's like, you know, maybe we have I've heard of people waiting like 2 years for knee replacements or hip replacements or whatever it was, like, you know, long wait times. And could there be a place somewhere in Canada where they could go to and get less of a wait?
You know, it's a great question. The challenging part of that question is that if there was, say, a platform where you can say, okay, I want my knee is sore or hurts, and I feel like I need a knee replacement.
Yep.
Then you're in devil's advocate. You're playing the doctor role there, and you're making that decision.
What if it was determined that you did need one? The doctors said, yeah, you need one, but you're you're not urgent, so you're going to be on the wait list. It's going to take 6 months, 8 months, 12 months.
Yeah, well, with the technology with knee replacements, and I'm not an orthopedic surgeon, but there's a certain shelf life on those knee replacements.
What do you mean a shelf life?
So they're only going to be good for so many years.
Oh,
yeah, right. Like 20, 25 years. The technology is getting better. I understand that, and I'm sure. And if you go online and go to find a company in the U.S., they'll say 30, 35 years or whatever it may be. But acknowledging that not everyone needs a knee replacement right away is very important because there are other interventions that can tie you over.
Like losing weight.
Absolutely, absolutely, because when we step 1 foot at a time. For every step that you're doing, and for every pound that you lose, it's like a 3-to-1 sort of ratio.
Right.
So for every 1 pound of weight you lose, you're losing 3 pounds on that knee particularly.
Right.
And yeah, I get it. It's hard to lose weight, but you'd be surprised at how many people and that 2-year wait list.
Yeah.
Right. You'd be surprised at how many of them are like, you know what, steroid injection really worked in that knee, or
sure.
I lost like 30 pounds. I don't need it anymore. Happens all the time. So I think to play devil advocate,
Yeah.
you gotta be careful on sort of rushing someone to getting procedure done.
Well, yeah, I'm not rushing. I just mean like right now, it's like you go see your doctor. He tells you it's going to be this long, and you just got to wait. Maybe you do need it or whatever like that. But I just mean, I want to look at the Canadian health system as a whole. I think we're compartmentalized into the provincial, territorial aspect, where it's like maybe there's a doctor sitting on his thumbs in Saskatchewan that can do an extra knee replacement or 2 a year. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's got the time because he's just not as busy there. The population isn't there. You know what I mean?
The limiting factor is not the doctor. Like you have to acknowledge that it's so complex going through a surgery. They've created a good system so it works well, but you have to essentially wait on the anesthetist. You have to wait on making sure that staffing in the OR is good, right? You have, like the nursing, right? There are several ORs across the country that are not even operating because we don't have enough OR staffing nurses.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's right. And so acknowledging that those are limiting factors to this.
Wow.
And then
is this a funding thing? If we paid them more money, would they do it?
Paid who more money?
The nurses that aren't we can't staff these OR rooms, so we need more staff, right? What's the answer to that?
Well, it's very complex because when we had overcapacity of beds, we were closing down surgery capacity because we were pulling potentially nurses to do X, Y, and Z roles across the hospital. So it's extremely complicated.
We had overcapacity of beds.
Overcapacity of people that were admitted in hospital.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that happened. It happened.
That makes sense. Yeah. So the nurses are getting thrown into.
Yeah, they're getting pulled into different directions.
Got it.
Right.
The tidal wave of patients walking through the front door instead of doing the elective surgeries that took time to wait or whatever.
Yeah, like for instance, we call it a code orange, where there's like say mass casualty event, right?
Say meteor hits a school. There's 50 people coming in.
Yeah, if meteor hits a school, but yeah. But say there's there's an event where 4 more people are injured.
Okay.
And
car accident.
And then now you need increased resources in that hospital.
Sure.
Okay. So a big car accident, and this happened in Hope, like a big bus of people that got big bus crash.
Okay.
Well, you're trying to now pull resources in the pool that you have to support a situation. And so in those circumstances, sometimes the ORs do get affected, even though they're doing a better job now. Like now they've realized that when COVID happened, we did reduce capacity in the ORs, which had a downstream significant effect on people being delayed for surgery.
Oh yeah.
And these people end up coming back and forth to emerge and so forth. So the downstream consequences were huge. So we're not going to be doing that again potentially as often unless it's a one-off situation. But the acknowledging that those sort of the ORs, they're extremely complicated. Because there's step-down units. There's a complexity of patients. For a simple day surgery, you can get it done pretty quick.
Right.
But when it comes to no, he's a bit more complex. He has X, Y, Z problem. He'll need to see an anesthetist. He'll need to do this. He'll need to do that. And then before you know it, it's the surgeon potentially has capacity or wants to do it, but can't get you in.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
like that's the, you have to acknowledge that there's so much OR time that surgeons get,
Right.
right, based on the capacity for the hospitals.
Wait a minute. Explain that. There's only so much time that the doctor gets.
Well, that has access to doing surgery. Yes.
Okay, so doctor, he's a surgeon. He's at a hospital. That's his hospital. He does surgeries, whatever it is that he chooses to do, I guess.
Yep.
And he only gets so much time.
That's right.
What kind of time limit do they have?
Oh, I can't comment on that. That's too hard to judge because it's just too many subspecialties, right? There's
Okay.
urology, which is
Sure.
There is general surgery, then
Sure.
there is, the list goes
Like,
on and on. And there's emergency surgery.
Are we like would a surgeon do one surgery a week, 2 a week, 3 a week? Like what's
Depends on where they're working.
let's say a general surgeon in a 200,000 city.
Like Abbotsford.
Yeah.
That's a great question for a general surgeon. Yeah, you should maybe bring one on.
Yeah.
I know a few.
Yeah. Yeah. I could give them a call, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm just curious because the problem is people always just go, oh, this is so bad. They can't figure this out. And then when you actually start breaking apart the problem, it's so complex.
Multi-layered.
It's so complex. Like there's so many different layers. It's like, oh yeah, we'd love to do that, but we just don't have this or that. It's like, well, why can't we get that? Oh, because we did these things instead. And it's like, oh yeah, that is more important. And they're like, shit, what do you do, right? I mean, it's a multifaceted problem. And like you said, you're different. You're dealing with different people, like different types of people, different staffing issues. Like there's it's a multitude of factors.
Totally. And I love it when they throw around the term crisis or whatever it is.
Then it's clickbait for the news organization. They sell news, baby.
But you know what? This is what pushes creativity.
Right.
Right. This is good. In
change.
Yeah, exactly.
Evolution.
So if you're, you know what? If the news outlets are saying crisis, you know what? I just hear the word opportunity. What can we do to make change and things more efficient?
Mm-hmm.
If things are going really well, no one's going to make change.
Yeah.
Right. Even if they're not that great.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So this is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
So now we're going to potentially make more doctors. We're looking at inefficiencies. We're gonna work towards it. So we are heading in the right direction, but it's a slow moving iceberg right now.
Yeah.
And so we have ideas, but we don't have the HR, essentially the human resources, to actually fill what we want to do. And then here comes AI. AI has a lot of opportunity to plug and fill in different areas.
Right.
We just want to make sure that it's safe, that patients are not going to get harmed.
Right.
Which is sometimes, when you apply AI in the tech world, you can apply it and do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Nobody's life's on the line.
But when it's patient harm, let's just test this out first.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you gotta take it.
No one's like putting their hand up and be like, okay, yeah, do it on me.
Yeah, well, unless you're getting that Neuralink from Elon Musk.
That's right. Like first robot to do surgery.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, sign me up.
Yeah.
First robot to do knee replacements.
Who unplugged the robot?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're heading in the right direction. I actually do have a lot of hope. I would say that with regards to time is going to be the challenge, the transition time here.
What do you mean by the time, like the transition time? Just it's going to be a tough couple of years?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we have to create more working on creating more physicians that are doing what we feel filling the gaps in the healthcare system, right?
Right.
You can create 100 family physicians or 200 family doctors. It doesn't mean that they're going to help the merge or help the
right. Well, hopefully preventative care helps emerge, but
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying.
But looking at those things, right?
Yeah, you got to be working together, like you said. Like
it has to be a true collaborative effort and partnership. And every health authority will tell you, yeah, it is. That's what it is. But we can do a better job. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
They're all saying it is, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly. If someone's doing 90% of the work or 70% of the work, and they're not communicating that well, and they can't, and we can improve on accountability. I'll tell you one thing. The health authority is doing what they can with the pieces they have.
Right.
Right. I just think that with the community providers, we can do a little bit more, and it takes more time.
Mm-hmm.
We may not get paid as much, and it's harder, but we can do a little more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the easy answer is always throw more money at it, but it's not necessarily the right answer.
Yeah, and it's in small communities. You definitely have a roll up your sleeve sort of attitude to it. Mm-hmm. So you're just like, okay, or we're just gonna pick up one extra shift and we're covered or we're going to do it. But in the bigger communities, it's very detached from each other, right? So what's happening in the community is very, very siloed from what's happening in the hospital, and both sides can communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
But there needs to be a better partnership and collaboration, so that, and as well as accountability to make sure we reduce these patients coming to the hospital.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of. It feels like all the walk-in clinics in the entire province were shut down like overnight. Like they just. I would go to a walk-in clinic my entire life if I needed to, and typically I'm not one who needs. I'm pretty healthy, like I'm young, so I don't have a lot of ongoing stuff or whatever. So if I had something, I'd go to walk-in clinic, and then it's like, oh man, what do I do now?
But why do you go to walk-in clinic? And this is a rhetorical question, but why are you going to walk-in clinic? Because timely access.
Right.
You are coming there for a particular service, get timely access. Imagine if you had timely access with your family care provider.
Yeah.
Right? What if that was incentivized and that was built in, right? And I can understand both sides, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
where it's like, well, I need to schedule them in. I'm busy enough as it is. But what if there's a certain amount of scheduled visits and what if they're timely access visits, right? And so how do we then create a system where no one takes advantage of it on, say, on the physician side of things? At the same time, the patient experience is better.
Right.
And that's what and patient experience satisfaction it goes a long way.
For sure.
Yeah. Like, for instance, maybe you can't be seen today, but maybe you can be seen this week.
Right.
Because you've been triaged appropriately. And triage meaning like someone there that has a little bit of medical background, doesn't be a doctor, but a little bit of medical background would be a nurse, a licensed practitioner nurse or a registered nurse that listens to your problem and says, you know what, we'll get you in on Wednesday. And if today being Monday, we'll get you on Wednesday. And you're okay with that.
Right.
And then to fit you in. Like that's the system. There are actually clinics that are trying to apply this model already, and it's highly successful.
Interesting. So that's something that's going to start happening across the Fraser Valley, across BC.
I wouldn't say it's going to happen across the Fraser Valley and BC. I think that physicians now have the opportunity to do this.
Okay.
And there will be shared footprints or shared models of how we can apply this. Currently, we have something called the Patient Care Network. The Patient Care Network is really delivering on a lot of allied health services, so like nurses, social work, all stuff. Bring them into the community, bring them into the clinics where they can then help the doctors.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's happening. It just takes time.
Yeah. So we're looking at a 5 to 10 year process.
Yeah, well, this is where politics plays a big role, right? I think we're in an election year, and yeah. So things are moving really quickly, and then it's up to.
I was going to say, that's one of the issues that I have with our education system, our healthcare system, is that we have politicians making 4-year decisions, because they don't want it on the books, after they're out of office, right? So it's like if they do something that's a long-term right move, like build a new hospital. Well, it's going to take years before the hospital is built. Yep. So by the time it's built, the next guy's in power, and he's like, hey, look at this new hospital I built. And everyone's like, oh, we love you. Whether it's conservative, liberal, NDP, doesn't matter. That guy gets the credit. Yeah. So we have this constant, kick it down the road 2 more years, keep the spending down so I can spend the money somewhere else where people will see it, because they don't see it back here. They want to see it up front. And then that's the system that we have for politics, right? Because right now we're getting into an election year, like you mentioned. We're likely going to have a conservative government. They're going to take over a hot bag of crap from the federal government. They have huge deficits that they have to clean up and whatever. So it's going to take 4 to 8 years probably to clean the mess up from the Liberals. Probably more. And by the time they start making progress, everyone's going to get sick of the Conservatives again. And they're going to vote the Liberals back in. And the Liberals are going to take over a better government than what they left. And they're like, oh, look how good we're doing. And this system just is a perpetuating system of voting out who we don't want instead of the long-term decision making. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And politics is always very interesting because you have people that go strong one side or the other side. Yeah. But, there are some things that you may like on the liberal side of things and lots of things that you might like on the conservative side of things, right? Some people, sometimes I just really, really do feel that people just need to be rational about this thing.
Right.
It's just got to be rational about how we spend and the downstream consequences.
100%. Right? That's what I mean. It shouldn't be a political issue. It should be, I think, education, healthcare. These things should be apart from politics, where it's like we all want our grandmothers to be able to get the medical treatment that they need. If my child is diagnosed with cancer, I want to get the best care available. You know what I mean? Like these are universal. We can all agree on that. Kids with cancer, that sucks. If you can't agree with that,
Totally.
you know what I mean?
I had a lady in the hospital not too long ago that was like, I paid 80 years of tax, 80 years of taxes.
Right.
If I have to go to long-term care, I am freaking going.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah,
exactly. I get it.
exactly.
I mean, it's still a problem.
Yeah,
It still is a problem. It's still a huge cost that we're going to be bearing.
Oh, totally.
It's coming up. Like it's, I don't think people realize how big the boomers are. Now, I will say this, the boomers, for whatever reason, we track boomers in a 20-year cycle.
Okay.
The generation, for whatever reason, we track it in 20. Everyone else is like 15 years.
Yeah.
So we're tracking them as a generation in a 20-year cycle. So they're actually not. If you tracked us in a 20-year cycle, we're actually bigger.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, but we don't do that. We track the boomers for whatever reason in a 20-year cycle, and then like there's the what is it? Is it Gen X? And then there's the millennials, and there's the Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah.
Yeah, we're Y, but they called us millennials or whatever. So, anyways, yeah. So it's like we have a huge cohort of boomers. This 2023 and 2022 were the two highest years that the boomers were retiring. So they're reaching the age of 65. The largest,
doctors, yeah.
right? Which is doctors, like everyone,
Yeah.
like everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's now a shortage of teachers. I was like, where did the shortage of teachers come from? They go, well, a lot of people stepped out after COVID, and they're challenged with
Absolutely.
With the students are more challenging now than they've ever been. They're more addicted to screens and everything else.
Sounds like medicine.
Yeah. So I mean, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
so this is it's a new world and a new world of challenges that we've been kind of like, hey, here, you guys are now in charge. The millennials, you're now in charge.
Yeah.
Best of luck. Hope you do good. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it's starting to feel like.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of millennials, they want to create businesses, they want to do well for themselves, and they're almost forced to do it because, you know, getting paid say $25-$30 an hour is just will not get you to where you need to be, say in British Columbia.
You can't survive on that.
Yeah, it's really hard to raise a family.
So if you want to know like costs, so in 1980, if you made $30,000 a year, okay, 1980, that is today in 2023, so 6 months ago, you had to earn $176,000 a year.
Oh boy.
For $30K in 1980 to today.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of people making $176,000 a year. Canadian household income average is 105.
Yeah.
That's both parents working or whatever. That's a household.
Yeah.
Right. So times are different.
Very different.
Very different. You know what I mean?
And and I do think that, you know, the middle class is separated into like a middle upper and middle lower class, and it's dividing, and you know, the middle upper classes and like everyone in the middle class is trying to push for, because they know that they're like everything costs so much more. Mm-hmm. Like it's simple, buying your kid a pair of sneakers, buying and clothes. Yeah. You list it. Everything costs more. You want something fixed in your house, costs, and it's amazing how much
dinner with the wife isn't $100 and something bucks anymore. It's $300.
Yeah, totally, and it is adding up. Mm-hmm. So there comes a time where you have to then make these hard decisions.
Right.
And, you know, the whole economic landscape, and I don't want to go into too far into this, but the whole economic, it does even impact, like, it impacts how, like, with physicians saying, well, if I'm going to get paid less money to work in a more intense environment, you know, I'm gonna
take the easy road.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so when we're in the transition phase, when we're talking about physicians, well, they're factoring this into it now.
100%.
Yeah, and their parents are, but like as well. They're like, yeah, you know, just work in the office. You know, work like 4 hours and 6 hours in the office, right? To do that, don't stress yourself out.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you about is did for a spell did Canada lose a lot of physicians to America and other places that were paying better than we were? Did a lot of physicians that we put through school, Canadians, leave and go to U.S. or other areas?
You know,
is that still happening?
I'm not entirely sure. I would say when it comes to family physicians, I would say majority are staying.
Now.
I think they've always stayed. Okay. It's a 2-year residency versus a 3-year residency in the U.S.
Okay. So you're making money faster.
I don't even think that the degree is transferable when it comes to family medicine.
Okay.
Subspecialty is a different conversation altogether, right?
Sure.
So I do know of some subspecialists that have gone down to the U.S. there, and it's so much more complex down there. I know you had asked me about, well, is it a better system, or what do you think about that? It's interesting because you can access a subspecialist right away, which is great, and then you get the intervention maybe probably within a week or two, which is fantastic. But the question is, do you really need that intervention? And they're getting paid money.
Yeah.
Right? They're not necessarily, most of them that are making really good money are not salary based, right? They're getting paid money per intervention. So think about this.
Yeah.
So a doctor becomes successful, works 10 years in a hospital, then he opens up his private clinic. He's bought the MRI machine. He's bought this, bought that. Your insurance will cover 80% of it.
Oh, okay? You need an MRI. You need a CAT scan.
That's right.
You need this.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then they even have this study where they're at one point, and this is several years ago, where they were like just putting stents in any amount of coronary blockage.
Right.
They're just throwing them in there.
Yeah.
And then in the aftermath, what they realized, those people were dying quicker.
Wow.
Because there's more complications, more intervention.
Right.
It's just aggressive.
Well, yeah. Instead of saying, hey, you're in a situation where if you start watching what you eat a little bit more and you start exercising a little bit more, this is totally preventable. And they're just like slamming a stint in.
That's right.
And instead of like, dude, preventative medicine.
Because it sounds scary to you. Like,
right.
They're like, oh,
you could have a heart attack if we don't put a stint in right away.
That's right.
Holy shit. Put it in.
Yeah. They're like, oh, you have a 50% blockage. 50%?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And just for the month of February, we've got a discount. If you get 4 stints, you'll pay for the price of 3.
Yeah. It's wild.
Right.
And then they'll give you the bill where it's like maybe like, a small amount.
Yeah.
But because your insurance is covered so much.
Sure.
And this is where that sort of, in my opinion, a lot of the corruption comes into.
Yeah.
So you're not getting
That's a fair point.
Yeah, you're not getting that. And just to kind of go full circle, this goes to the point of your knee replacement recommendation. Yeah, what would be nice to get to a point where it's like, if I need a knee replacement, I can just book that in and so forth. There will be a future where, even in Canada, where you can look at availability time.
Yep.
Yes, it may be like a year and a half or a year or even 9 months, but if you need that knee replacement done within within 4 to 6 weeks, it will potentially get done if it's impacting your actual day-to-day life and your ability to work and so forth.
Yeah,
right?
that was my question. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're complex, like if you have medical, like for instance, well, you gotta give me anesthesia, and you have heart failure,
your high blood pressure, or whatever.
Yeah, and blood pressure is a small part, but like other complex comorbidities, then it's like, well, you need a bed in the hospital now.
Right.
Right now it gets more complicated.
Right.
You gotta be monitored.
Right.
And that's where someone, when you hear those stories, right? Okay, it's gonna take 2 years for this knee replacement and so forth.
Yeah.
Right? And so.
Yeah, I had a client. He went back to the UK for a hip replacement because he could get it done faster there because he's a dual citizen or whatever. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, what I mean? There's obviously going to be nuanced things about every case or whatever, but I was just wondering, like, maybe there's a system where, you can go online and say, hey, this is the operation I need, and then you can see availability of wait times in different areas, right? So maybe it's worth the trip to Prince Rupert to get it done there, you know what I mean, or whatever. That's all I was thinking, right?
Yeah, I know. I did speak to one of my surgical colleagues, and he says that like colonoscopies, surgical wait times are down quite a bit right now because they've been working around the clock to actually help get back on schedule to the catch up that they've been working on.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it is interesting because, and I'm not too sure about orthopedics, but at least for the wait times for surgery, general surgery, and stuff like that, the wait times are significantly reducing.
That's good.
Yeah.
So. I mean, like you said, COVID happened. They kicked a whole bunch of these things down the road. Now there was a bottleneck. We got to get through that, and the light is at the end of the tunnel now. Yeah,
and even though the political year is 4 years, things take about 3 to 5 years to actually translate into sort of efficiencies.
Right.
It's just it just there's only so much capacity in hospitals.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, let's recap here. The system has been suffering because people have left. They've been retiring. They stepped away. COVID changed the landscape of the internal operating system of our healthcare in BC. COVID changes came in and they were instant, and this is the way we're doing it now. Some doctors stepped away. Nurses as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so we were short-staffed.
Yeah, I would say there's a human resource issue for sure.
Okay, and then moving forward, we are changing the pay structure for family doctors. So family doctors now will receive more money in more fair compensation for what they're providing.
Correct.
Theoretically, this will reduce the burden on the hospitals because they'll be receiving better preventative care.
Yeah, further attachment.
Generally.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the walk-in clinics and stuff like that, the idea of less walk-in clinics is more relationships with your physician. So you're going to see your physician instead of going to a general.
Well, and just to kind of just tweak what
Please, yeah.
I wouldn't say that not suffering. I would say challenged, and COVID put a unique twist on everything.
Sure. I love using the word, so a challenge is good. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a drinking challenge.
Yeah. And what's happened is that we have created new positions.
Right.
We have created new opportunities, and
That's
within the same pot of individuals.
Yeah.
And now that's created people going into new positions.
Right.
New roles.
Right.
New programs. With the same amount of people, and that's what's caused a lot of the HHR deficits.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I mean, obviously, it takes a little bit of time for the equilibrium to balance, and then
Absolutely.
we can then see what the new bottleneck is and fix that.
Yeah, and they've created a new physicians master agreement for some of the payment model for physicians in the community. They've rebargained the nursing
Right.
payment and stuff. That's
Right.
recently happened. We're getting to the right direction. We're heading where going towards stability.
Yep.
But sometimes you can't see it when all you're doing is putting out fires.
Yeah, 100%.
But we're heading in the right direction. And
Yeah.
that's extremely important to acknowledge. It just doesn't look like it right now because it takes 3 to 5 years in that transition phase.
Right.
The challenging moving target here is how many of those plus 60-year-old doctors are retiring who are equal to about 2 to 3 actually doctors that are new grads.
Interesting. I mean, wouldn't the old doctors be dealing, like, wouldn't those patients now go to the new doctors? Like, wouldn't that be the same level of, why is it such a big difference in between, like, you need 3 doctors to replace 1 doctor? I know you touched on it earlier, but I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's so shocking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just different perspectives, the patients have different perspectives on the level of care that they want to receive as well. So like when I have a young patient that wants to talk, like for instance, okay, let's just take you. So you come in and you see me and you say you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Our conversation and our dynamic is going to be very different. It's going to be a little bit more patient-centered, relationship-based.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the older doctors are not doing this. They've done this over a period of years, right?
Right.
They developed that relationship over years. But a lot of the older doctors are seeing, say, 50 people a day. Things are a bit more transactional.
No, for sure they were.
But they've developed that relationship over years.
Yeah.
Like they've gone through that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Where we, as the younger physicians, are developing relationship as we are going along right now.
Right.
And that takes time.
So do you feel that in the future, your age cohort of doctors will be seeing more patients and they will be faster?
I think so. Yeah, I think so because they'll be more efficient.
Sure.
For insert addition of AI to help come with starting to documentation, insert new sort of widgets or whatever it may be to help with that. But to a certain point where things cost money.
Right.
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 So therein lies the bottleneck of things, right? We want things to be simplified at the same time and make our life easier, but at the same time, when the people that are driving up the cost of those certain things, they want huge profits, and that's going to be sort of where the challenge is.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Like you said earlier, when you get too reliant on AI, then AI's got you by the cojones, medically speaking, and then you can't even operate without them. So now they say, oh, by the way, it's going to be an extra 33%. You just got to pay it. So you can't be dependent on any one system like that.
Yeah, like think of maybe your Amazon Prime account. All right, so now you pay, I don't know. I think it's about $100 maybe a year.
Yeah, $10 a month, $12 a month, whatever it is.
What if they say it's now $250? You're still gonna pay it.
You're darn tootin'.
Yeah, exactly.
I pay that in shipping anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope just Jeff Bezos never listens to this podcast.
But hold on, it doesn't stop there. Well, what if they say $500? And
Right.
then what if it gets to $999? And now you're having a fair discussion with you and your wife.
Oh, like, do we really need this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen with the medicine system as well when it comes to technology.
Right. Yeah,
So hopefully that analogy kind of paints you a picture.
It's eerie. Terrifying.
So Bezos got you by the balls.
He's got me by the balls. Yeah, I just don't know it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, buddy. Well, I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I want to ask you one more thing. All right. So I'm going to start asking my client, or not my clients, my guests this when they come on. So I want you to imagine you can live as long as you want. Mm-hmm. Eventually you're going to die. You've accomplished everything that you wanted to accomplish in your life. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, when you die, all your work will be gone. Nobody will have any access to all your work and everything that you've done. But you can leave 3 things behind, 3 truths that you know to be true. What are you leaving behind? What are your 3 truths that you're leaving behind for the future generations to look at?
You know, I definitely need a little bit more thought on that. But if just in broad strokes,
strokes,
I would say be patient.
Okay, patient with what and how? Just in general.
Yeah, just be patient, right?
Okay.
Have patience, exhibit patience. You know, if you talk to very smart people that have seen a lot.
Yeah.
They observe, they're patient.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you may think may be obvious is not obvious to the human eye. There's a lot of things that go in place, right?
Right.
Like, for instance, just using one example, 2-year wait list for knee surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, why can't you just operate faster? He's not the rate limiting step.
Mm-hmm.
It's other things that are actually, he may not have enough OR time. He may be going through something family-wise.
Sure.
He may be going through, it might be an OR nursing staffing shortage.
Right.
Right? There's so many little different things. So be patient, because we don't have what you may think is not necessarily everything that.
Yeah, you don't have all the information.
That's right. I would say integrity. Man, I get it. We all have to hustle, work hard.
Sure.
But when you start hustling, when your hustle starts impacting or hurting other people, in my opinion,
mm-hmm.
that's a form of lack of integrity, right?
Right.
Like, I get it, if you have a business and you take advantage of certain people, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then you could just imagine the chaos and the anarchy if everyone was doing that.
Right.
Right. And, integrity is extremely important because it helps instill morals and so forth. And if you display good integrity on a day-to-day basis, you will have friends with integrity, you will have family with integrity, and it just keeps going on and on.
100%.
Yeah. And the last one, because you just thrown this question at me. Oh boy. Now, patience, integrity. I would say, take risks when you have the ability to be supported. So early on in your youth years,
yep.
Take those risks when you're within the support. Now, obviously not like jumping off, let's say a plane without a parachute or something.
100%.
But take reasonable risks.
Swing for it every once in a while.
To learn and be open to sort of criticism, feedback, and just grow from that. You need growth. It's extremely important where, especially our younger generation, the relationship building has been, I've heard over and over again, this generation is a little bit different. This generation is a little bit different. And that's fair enough, right? The generation is different because of the cards that they've been dealt.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so they got to now play the game.
They're playing the best they can with the hand they have.
That's right. And so we just have to be a little bit understanding of that. Like, I get it. The older generation say, "Oh, well, back in my day," and yada yada.
Yeah.
But we have to be
I
acknowledging.
bought a house for a button and a raspberry.
Yeah, that's right. So, anyways, it's extremely important to just be understanding of that aspect of it. So,
right.
Extremely important.
Well, I like your answers. There's no wrong answer for those, by the way.
That's not. I know it's fine.
As
a physician,
introspective.
As a physician, I would say that there is always a wrong answer.
You get enough physicians in the same room and there's no consensus.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's like appendicitis, yes or no? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, buddy. That's it, man. We're done. That's it. That's the podcast.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.